The topic we are going to talk today, it's something which is connected to my, again, book which is out recently, War on Terror, because if we look at recently the enemy image in Hindi cinema and Bollywood cinema got changed uh, post 1990s onwards. Earlier, the enemy image, the way it was, enemy was getting represented, they were mostly. Thank you. I will just keep it a little far. Yeah, I think it's fine, right? Yeah. So, if you look at before 1990s or pre that particular period, enemy image was more of a like something Mogambo or Gabbar Singh, and they were part of our real life and real experiences. They were not someone who is trying to harm the nation. Rather, they had their targeted, very individualized enemy. But now, post 1990s onwards, we have noticed that the whole idea of enemy got changed. So I will start my talk with one of the quotes. I will be, in this particular talk, I'll be referring a lot of quotations. What I gathered or during my interviews, what I have conducted for the book during my, even as part of my PhD thesis. So I will start with a quote. I was interviewing lyricist Javed Akhtar, and he pointed out, for a long time, we have not made any film on partition, on that mayhem with huge, humongous, grand part. Perhaps Indian cinema did not have the language. We don't have the syntax to deal with that. So we just pretended that it never happened. And there was a total silence in Hindi cinema as well as this chapter of Indian history. That is so true because if we have noticed, we have witnessed throughout the decades, there are multiple communal riots which happened. For example, it started from 1947, India-Pakistan partition, then afterwards 1984, anti-Sikh riots, and then afterwards, Babri demolition, 1991 and 1992, post-Godhra riots in 1992, Muzaffarnagar in UP, that is in 2013, Delhi riots during CA NRC movement and in 2020, around 19 and 2020. So Hindi cinema or Bollywood has conveniently just negated those or ignored those. And what Bollywood cinema has chosen, on the other hand, Bollywood has chosen terrorism is one of the important trope or one of the important narratives for the film plot. So therefore, Bollywood has represented Muslims always through a selective ideological lens. So that's how they set the tone, because how Bollywood is always very selective while choosing their narratives. And if we talk about in post 1990s, just as I started my talk, in patriotism and nationalism became very aggressive, and in aggressive way we have started promoting the whole idea of patriotism and nationalism on film text. And how we have done that through representing a certain enemy image, and what are those enemy image? Of course, the terrorists. And those films I have termed as terroristic films. And who are those? Again, the victims. Victims are common, ordinary citizens, primarily the majoritarian people. And who are terrorizing? Again, the people coming from a particular religious identity. So there are hundreds of films coming up from, and Roja was the first film in 1992 which was released, and later on that became the floodgate of many other films later on which were released. So if I start talking about or start saying all the names, it will take 10 minutes. So all of us, we know that what are those films from Roja to even the last one probably we can talk about, which became huge that attracted a lot of attention. That may be Kerala story too, the last which was out. So, as in the morning, I was listening to Dr. Hars, and he was telling that we need to again term and we have to understand who is terrorist and who is terming them as terrorist, who has that authority to term them as terrorist. And here I would like to point out that there are a lot many terrorist attacks, or there are a lot many terror attacks which happened across the world, even in Indian context. So if we look at post-independence, India had witnessed much political violence in Kashmir, insurgent movements in northeastern states, Khalistan movement in Punjab, and Tamil and radical Naxal militancy. These terrorist attacks or activities found hardly any representation in popular culture. While there were numerous incidents which could be categorized as terrorist acts in world history, such violent acts were never marked by their religion. So it is often done with Islam. And while going further, I was interviewing Al Nasai Zakaria, who is a politician and also academician, during my field work. And he said that if you see historically all over the world, Irish Republican Army gave hard time to England. England was a superpower at that time. They bombed people in public gatherings, churches, and theaters. So no one said these are the Christian terrorists. So these religious, there are a lot of studies have been done on religious terrorism, a topic mostly taken by David Rappaport's work, seminal work. And later on, Islamic terrorism became a kind of area to study. If we talk about what is terrorism or terrorist studies, when we are terming it is terrorism, what are the things and what are the primary debates around that? The debate on terrorism is based on long history but gained more importance after 1911. Of course, all of us we know. What are the things which we can categorize as terrorist attack? The mainstream mass media has used a framework centered on brutality, intimidation, extremism, fanaticism, and terrorism to represent Muslims. And that's how Islamic terrorism has become and one of the domain to look at. Now, if we look at the other angle to it, while talking to Kabir Khan, the filmmaker, the director, very renowned director and popular director, he was documentary filmmaker. And he pointed out, as he has traveled across the world, and he was making when he was making a film like Kabul Express, and he actually literally he has gone to Afghanistan and he has spoken to people, and he told that I met a terrorist in Afghanistan to make Kabul Express, and I firmly believe that 95% of these people are not fighting for religion. It is a personal issue. They do not fight for an ideology. In Kashmir, terrorists are fighting because a 14-year-old girl or boy sees his father is getting slapped by BSF soldiers. Afterwards, the boy is becoming a terrorist, not because he believes in jihad. You are the representative of Indian government and I will shoot you. So there might be different reasons for it. It's not that something you are or someone is fighting in the name of religion. They have their own personal issues. Now, most interestingly, here I would like to point out how that is catering to common man's imagination or public imagination, because I have conducted interviews with filmmakers, film critics, but at the same time, I spoke to ordinary audience as well. So during 1990s, and afterwards, as I told, the real life inspired villain characters just started gradually vanishing. And I was talking to one of the college going students and I was asking him, how do you look at, what is your idea of cinematic enemy image? He interestingly pointed out, whenever I think about an enemy, it was always brings to my mind the image of a terrorist imported from Pakistan. So now we have completely shifted the whole idea of enemy to someone terrorist or Pakistani. Or and even now the situation is becoming much more worse because this particular data collection was done in 2016, around that particular time. If you look at, again, the boy is pointing out that that terrorist is imported from Pakistan, but now we have enemy within because there are a lot of films which are coming out. I'm coming to that particular phase little later. So these terroristic films are termed as cinepatriotism by Manisha Sethi and Amit Rai, and they have developed further with that particular framework. If we look at, if we can divide these terroristic films in different categories, the first, it started with Kashmir and terrorists from Kashmir, the insurgency, and that was the floodgate. With Roja, we have started noticing that. Later on, if we look at that next phase of terroristic films where post Babri demolition and the riots, followed by riots and followed by blasts. That was the second phase because at that time we have noticed that across the country there are multiple terrorist attacks happened, and that became the inspiration for the filmmaker to make films. And a third category, a third phase of terroristic films were 9/11 attacks and post 9/11 attacks. So those were having that international tag, and for example, films like New York or Kurban, those films were having certain international context. And the fourth category of film, terroristic films, which are coming up now, for example, Kerala stories. So where Indian people, they are having certain direct contact with, or they are indirectly involved with these terroristic activities. Now, when we talk about the Kashmir, the first phase of terroristic films, Kashmir issue and the whole movement, and that became the inspiration for film. And there are a lot of films, they have, at that time, they have taken stance, government, the static stance of what government has proposed that particular movement. And one of the, again, ordinary person who used to who works in government sector, and when while talking to him, he pointed out, you should why Kashmiris should be having 100 rupees basmati rice, and they should be getting in 20 rupees. So, and he pointed out exactly these Abdullah clan and these multi-billionaires, why should it be 100 rupees for 1 kg of basmati rice for us, whereas they pay 20 rupees? Why? How long it will go on? So when this kind of narrative and this kind of mindset, when we have the state position, we are adopting to state position. So I argue that if a section of ordinary citizens adopt the state's position on abrogation of Article 370, the trope can be well utilized by filmmakers to exploit the audience's sentiment. So that very much happened. And now, if we look at, as I told, the second phase, that was the Khaki. There are a number of films, Black Friday, Wednesday, Dhoka, and A Soldier Never Off Duty. So those films actually portray a concern for security or a threat within majoritarian consciousness. The film protagonists of these films are represented as threatening Islamic terrorists who intimidate ordinary citizens. So again, we are taking state position here, and here I would like to again quote a film critic who, very renowned film critic, Suladitya Sen, and he says that every year he attends film festival, Goa Film Festival, and he was telling that I have seen audiences and how they enjoy state terrorism. In a film like Wednesday, where Nasiruddin Shah, as the common man, is saying that in your house sometimes some insects come in. In the film, I'm talking in the context of the Wednesday. The way you kill those insects, do the same for those terrorists. For that, you need to go to a police and for that you don't need to go to a police and don't have to take any help from judiciary. So these kind of sentiments are defying the system of law and order, and Wednesday became very popular. And he was pointing out if he would have opposed in this particular celebration of joy, he would have bitten to death, probably. So the state position is adopted, when state position is adopted by the citizen, so this film's becoming more and more popular. Now I will be talking about films like Fiza and Fana. So here the whole idea of good Muslim and bad Muslims we can, by Mahmoud Mamdani's theory, and we can really co-opt with this whole idea of who is good and who is bad. Because in both the films, Fiza and Fana, actually in Fiza, she is killing her own brother because he understood that her own brother is a terrorist. On the other hand, in Fana, we are seeing that the girl who is killing her own husband, Rahman Kadri. And here, both of them, if we look at the sequence, we have seen in 1950s Mother India, where Radha's character sees killing her own son to save the honor of a girl. On the other hand, here we are seeing these two women, they are killing their own brother and husband, again to save the nation. So the shift in the thought process and the political ideology, and it has become, and we are proving ourselves that we are a good Muslim by killing our own people because they are involved. So here women are becoming the savior of the nation and the men are actually trying to harm the nation. And there are, if we look at, apart from these female characters, there are many other male characters as well. They have proved themselves their allegiance to the nation. There are multiple films like Sarfaroz, there Amir Khan as Assistant Commissioner Police, Ajay Singh Rathore in got the maximum help from the Muslim inspector in Salim. So there are in Haram also Shah Rukh Khan's character, Amjad Ali Khan, who is again becoming really a good patriot Muslim. But one interesting fact here I would like to point out, that is in 2017 or 2018, the film Mulk came out and it became a huge talk of the town. And the film, if we look at, interestingly, it has lot of, though it was celebrated by critics at the same time by popular discourse as well. But this film actually raises a lot of critical dialogues and problematic dialogues. And the story of the film, it talks about the Muslim family struggling to redeem their lost dignity after a family member got involved in terrorism. So here we can talk about, or I would like to point out one of the participants' quote. The film Mulk is highly disturbing and it's prioritizing. It is like Muslim households needs to be reformed and the Hindu daughter-in-law comes to reform the family. And the ultimate idea of these films is that Muslims need reform. They are damaged to some extent and they are backward socially and politically. Definitely, and that's what it happens when we are dealing with the subject which, and the subjects are more of a marginalized community to someone from outside community. It is not only limited to Muslims, it is other marginalized communities as well applicable. So again, if we talk about post 9/11, that particular phase, in Bollywood cinema actually needed to reform because India was going through certain transitions, again, because of liberalization. So there were a lot of international studios which were coming at that moment and they were collaborating with Indian media houses and production houses. For example, film studios like Warner Bros. Or Disney or Fox, DreamWorks, all were actually collaborating. So when Hollywood started representing Muslims as terrorists, so India also got influenced and swayed by that. And we have lot many films from Kurban, New York, My Name is Khan, Agent Vidud, and many more that actually talked about international terrorism. Now, if we talk about, again, it's very interesting to point out the film like from the same production house, we are seeing two different films. One is My Name is Khan, the other one is Kurban. So on the one hand, we are telling when My Name is Khan, someone is trying to defend that, yeah, I am a Muslim, but I am not a terrorist. On the other hand, Kurban is projecting something that next door neighbor can be also terrorist. So in Kurban, actually, this is again, it's something for the first time, the whole debate and discourse in Hindi cinema of Love Jihad came in, because that was one of the initial films which are talking about interreligious marriage, but at the same time in a very controversial way. And here, I would like to quote one dialogue from the film. His father is not agreeing for this particular interreligious marriage, the girl's daughter, or the girl's father. And he's saying, नहीं हम लोग अलग होते हैं, मत करो शादी, लेकिन हम लोगों को प्यार है तो तुम लोगों को प्यार है तो कर लो. That means we don't actually, we are different people, we don't agree, and if you still love, then you can go for that marriage. And later on it came out that this guy is again terrorist. And if are you understanding the narrative? So his worst fear became the true, and that became the reality. And that kind of narrative is reaching to the real life, and people are probably relating to it. And that is so dangerous. And here the whole idea of female body was utilized as a component to generate threat. Now, later on, all of us, we know that anti-conversion bill, later on it just got passed, and there are 12 states currently, they are following that anti-conversion bill. And recently in the newest in the list, that is Maharashtra. If we talk about war on terror, recently, in the recent films, that is in the post 2014, I think we should not be, because in my book, I have very chronologically and linear way I have looked at from post-independence era from 1947 to 2020. And I have categorized in Muslim social, Muslim historical, Muslim political, and Muslim modern. So Muslim historical, it's 1950s to 1960s, then 70s or mid-60s onwards, Muslim social, then 1990s onwards, Muslim political, because that time, as I said, that more political in nature films were coming out, and lastly, Muslim modern. But I think now if someone is studying, we should ignore that particular linear pattern. Rather, we should be looking at pre-2014 and post-2014, because many things got changed. And I had to do another round of data collection for this, because I did my data collection for my PhD in 2013 and 2012. And when I was restructuring the book as a book manuscript in 2019 and 2020. So many things got changed. I could not, it could not have been accepted if I would have kept the same data. So I had to go for another round of data collection, and that's why post 2014, actually this is a very different era altogether in terms of multiple spheres along with film text. So in 2014, post 2014, if we look at, here, the whole idea of border is breaking down. Earlier, we were thinking that terrorists are someone who are imported from Pakistan, but now not anymore. So here, the maximum they were getting represented as Kashmiris, but they are again having certain support from Pakistan. But post 2014, it was a bit different. So here I would like to point out that the post-2014 terroristic films performs a structurally different ideological function, invoking Foucault's concept of biopower and the society of normalization. These films locate the threat not as a frontier, but within the intimate intimate social fabric of the nation. In the college, even if you look at the film like Kerala Story, where this terrorist attacks or the planning happened, it's not somewhere in border or geographical boundary, rather it's happening in college canteen. So something which is close to you and which is very interpersonal. It's not anymore something happening in far away. So therefore, a film like, just a second. Films like Fana and Razi, Muslim women demonstrate their nationalism by sacrificing their own husbands and brother. The woman here is the instrument through which nation reclaims itself. Kerala Story, this gender dynamic got inverted because here uh, Muslim women are not anymore the savior of the nation. Rather, they have become the recruiter for the jihadis, and they are not nationalist anymore. So the new Hindu women are now the victim of Islamic seduction, innocent, ignorant need for cinematic protection. So and also most striking is that these films are not something which people are not watching. This film became one of the biggest super hit. And the investment of this film was 26 crore, but the return was more than 300 crore. So how much these films are actually accepted and celebrated by the audience, that's where it's so fascinating. And most importantly, earlier also it was happening like Muslims are represented as terrorists. Definitely there are certain terrorist activities. We know that and we acknowledge that. But when these terroristic films are representing Muslims, they are interchangeably, they are utilizing Muslims, terrorists, and Pakistanis. So you just miss out whether they are terming as terrorists or Pakistanis or Muslims. So now it is, and earlier at least the Pakistani tag was there, but now it is not anymore. That tag is also needed. It can be anyone, you and I, or anyone. So I will keep my talk till here. We would love to discuss further through question and answer. Thank you.